Hello, and welcome back to Storytime with Eric Zimmer. Where we last left off in Matilda, we were up to the part where Bruce Bogtrotter ate that enormous cake, that big chocolate cake the Trunchbull made him eat, all because he had stolen her morning snack. It just shows you how paranoid she can be. Now we're about to see how she deals with Matilda's class. This is going to be interesting, to say the least. So you ready? Alright. Let's begin. Chapter 12. Lavender. In the middle of the first week of Matilda's first term, Miss Honey said to the class, "I have some important news for you, so listen carefully. You too, Matilda. Put that book down for a moment and pay attention." Small, eager faces looked up and listened. "It is the headmistress's custom," Miss Honey went on, "to take over the class for one period each week. She does this with every class in the school, and each class has a fixed day and a fixed time. Ours is always 2 o'clock on Thursday afternoons, immediately after lunch. So tomorrow at 2 o'clock, Miss Trunchbull will be taking over for me for one lesson. I shall be there as well, of course, but only as a silent witness. Is that understood?" "Yes, Miss Honey," they chirped. "A word of warning to you all," Miss Honey said. "The headmistress is very strict about everything. Make sure your clothes are clean, your faces are clean, and your hands are clean. Speak only when spoken to. When she asks you a question, stand up at once before you answer it. Never argue with her, never answer back, never try to be funny. If you do, you will make her angry, and when the headmistress gets angry, you had better watch out." "You can say that again," Lavender murmured. "You took the words right out of my mouth, Lavender." "I am quite sure," Miss Honey said, "that she will be testing you on what you are meant to have learned this week, which is your 2 times table. So I strongly advise you to swat it up when you get home tonight. Get your mother or father to hear you on it." "What else will she test us on?" someone asked. "Spelling," Miss Honey said. "Try to remember everything you have learned these past few days. And one more thing. A jug of water and a glass must always be on her table when the headmistress comes in. She never takes a lesson without that. And I never read without a glass of ice-cold water either." "Now who will be responsible for seeing that it's there?" "I will," Lavender said at once. "Very well, Lavender," Matilda said. "It will be your job to go to the kitchen and get the jug and fill it with the water and put it on the table here with a clean, empty glass just before the lesson starts." "What if the jug's not in the kitchen?" Lavender asked. "There are a dozen headmistresses' jugs and glasses in the kitchen," Miss Honey said. "They are used all over the school." "I won't forget," Lavender said. "I promise I won't." Already Lavender's scheming mind was going over the possibilities that this water jug job had opened up for her. She longed to do something truly heroic. She admired the older girl Hortensia to distraction for her daring deeds she had performed in the school. She also admired Matilda, who had sworn her to secrecy about the parrot job she had brought off at home, and also the great hair oil switch which had bleached her father's hair. It was her turn now to become a heroine, if only she could come up with a brilliant plot. On the way home from school that afternoon, she began to mull over the various possibilities. And when at last the germ of a brilliant idea hit her, she began to expand on it, and lay her plans with the same kind of care the Duke of Wellington had done before the Battle of Waterloo. Admittingly, the enemy on this occasion was not Napoleon Bonaparte. But you would never have got anyone at Cruncham Hall to admit that the Trunchbull was a less formidable foe than the famous Frenchman. Great skill would have to be exercised, Lavender told herself, and great secrecy observed if she was to come out of this exploit alive. There was a muddy pond at the bottom of Lavender's garden, and this was the home of a colony of newts. The newt, although fairly common in English ponds, was not often seen by ordinary people because it is a shy and murky creature. It is an incredibly ugly, gruesome-looking animal, rather like a baby crocodile, but with a shorter head. It is quite harmless, but doesn't look like it. It is about 6 inches long and very slimy, with a greenish-gray skin on top and an orange-colored belly underneath. It is, in fact, an amphibian, which can live in or out of water. That evening, Matilda went to the bottom of the garden and searched, determined to catch a newt. They are swiftly moving animals and not easy to get hold of. She lay on the bank for a long time, waiting impatiently until she spotted a whopper. Then, using the circle hat as a net, she swooped and caught it. She had lined her pencil box with pondweed all ready to receive the creature, but she discovered that it was not easy to get the newt out of her hat and into the pencil box. It wriggled and squirmed like quicksilver, and apart from that, the box was only just long enough to take it. When she did get it in at last, she had to be careful not to trap its tail in the lid when she slid it closed. A boy next door called Rupert Entwistle had told her that if you chopped off a newt's tail, the tail stayed alive and grew into another newt 10 times bigger than the first one. It could be the size of an alligator. Lavender didn't quite believe that, but she was not prepared to risk it happening. And we see her catching the newt. Eventually, she managed to slide the lid of the pencil box right home, and the newt was hers. Then, on second thoughts, she opened the lid just the tiniest fraction so that the creature could breathe. The next day, she carried the secret weapon to school in her satchel. She was tingling with excitement. She was longing to tell Matilda about the plan of battle. In fact, she wanted to tell the whole class. Finally, she decided to tell nobody. It was better that way, because then no one, even when put under the most severe torture, would be able to name her as the culprit. Lunchtime came. Today it was sausages and baked beans. Lavender's favorite, but she couldn't eat it. "Are you feeling all right, Lavender?" Miss Honey asked from the head of the table. "I had such a huge breakfast," Lavender said. "I really couldn't eat a thing." Immediately after lunch, she dashed off to the kitchen and found one of the Trunchbull's famous jugs. It was a large, bulging thing made of blue glazed pottery. Lavender filled it half full of water and carried it, together with a glass, into the classroom and set it on the teacher's table. The classroom was still empty. Quick as a flash, Lavender got her pencil box from her satchel and slid open the lid just a tiny bit. The newt was lying quite still. With great care, she held the box over the neck of the jug and pulled the lid fully open and tipped the newt in. There was a plop as it landed in the water, and it thrashed around wildly for a few seconds before settling down. And now, to make the newt feel more at home, Lavender decided to give it all the pondweed from the pencil box as well. The deed was done. All was ready. Lavender put her pencils back to the rather damp pencil box and returned it to its correct place on her own desk. Then she went out and joined the others in the playground until it was time for the lesson to begin. Chapter 13. The Weekly Test. At 2 o'clock sharp, the class assembled, including Miss Honey, who noted that the jug of water and glass were in the proper place. Then she took up a position standing right at the back. Everyone waited. Suddenly marched the gigantic figure of the headmistress in her belted smock and green breeches. "Good afternoon, children," she barked. "Good afternoon, Miss Trunchbull," they chirruped. The headmistress stood before the class, legs apart, hands on hips, glaring at the small boys and girls who sat nervously at their desks in front of her. "Not a very pretty sight," she said. Her expression was one of utter distaste, as though she were looking at something a dog had done in the middle of the floor. "What a bunch of nauseating little warts you are." Everyone had the sense to stay silent. "It makes me vomit," she went on, "to think that I'm going to have to put up with a load of garbage like you in my school for the next 6 years. I can see that I'm going to have to expel as many of you as soon as possible to save myself from going round the bend." "You're one to talk." She paused and snorted several times. It was a curious noise. You can hear the same sort of thing if you walk through a riding stable when the horses are being fed. "I suppose," she went on, "your mothers and fathers tell you you're wonderful." Well, I am here to tell you the opposite, and you'd better believe me. Stand up, everybody! They all got quickly to their feet. Now put your hands out in front of you. And as I walk past, I want you to turn them over so I can see if they are clean on both sides. The Trunchbull began a slow march along the rows of desks, inspecting the hands. All went well until she came to a small boy in the second row. "What's your name?" she barked. "Nigel," the boy said. "Nigel what?" "Nigel Hicks," the boy said. "Nigel Hicks what?" the Trunchbull bellowed. She bellowed so loud that she nearly blew the little chap out of the window. "That's it," Miss Nigel said, "unless you want my middle names as well." He must have more than one of them. He was a brave little fellow, and one could see that he was trying not to be scared by the Gorgon who towered above him. "I do not want your middle names, you blister," the Gorgon bellowed. "What is my name?" "Miss Trunchbull," Nigel said. "Then use it when you address me. Now then, let's try again. What is your name?" "Nigel Hicks, Miss Trunchbull," Nigel said. "That's better," the Trunchbull said. "Your hands are filthy, Nigel. When did you last wash them?" "Well, let me think," Nigel said. "It's rather difficult to remember exactly. It could have been yesterday, or it could have been the day before." Does this kid shower every day? The Trunchbull's whole body and face seemed to swell up as though she were being inflated by a bicycle pump. "I knew it!" she bellowed. "I knew as soon as I saw you that you are nothing but a piece of filth. What is your father's job, a sewage worker?" "He's a doctor," Nigel said, "and a jolly good one. He says we're all so covered with bugs anyways that a bit of extra dirt never hurts anyone." "I'm glad he's not my doctor," the Trunchbull said. "And why, might I ask, is there a baked bean on the front of your shirt?" "We had them for lunch, Miss Trunchbull." "And do you usually put your lunch on the front of your shirt, Nigel? Is that what this famous doctor father of yours has taught you to do?" Baked beans are hard to eat, Miss Trunchbull. They keep falling off my fork." "Then why don't they give them spoons, then?" "You are disgusting," the Trunchbull bellowed. "You are a walking germ factory. I don't wish to see any more of you today. Go and stand in the corner with on one leg with your face to the wall. But Miss Trunchbull, don't argue with me, boy, or I'll make you stand on your head. Now do as you're told." Nigel went. "Well, stay where you are, boy, while I test you on spelling to see if you've learned anything at all this past week. And don't turn around when you talk to me. Keep your nasty little face to the wall. Now then, spell right." "Which one?" Nigel asked. "The thing you do with a pen, or the one that means the opposite of wrong?" He happened to be an unusually bright child, and his mother had worked hard with him at home on spelling and reading. "The one with the pen, you little fool." Nigel spelled it correctly, which surprised the Trunchbull. She thought she had given him a very tricky word, one that he wouldn't have yet learned, and she was peeved that he had succeeded. Then Nigel said, still bouncing on one leg and facing the wall, "Miss Honey taught us how to spell a new very long word yesterday." "And what word was that?" the Trunchbull asked softly. The softer her voice became, the greater the danger, but Nigel wasn't to know this. "Difficulty," Nigel said. "Everyone in the class can spell difficulty now." "What nonsense," the Trunchbull said. "You're not supposed to learn long words like that until you're at least 8 or 9. Don't try to tell me everybody in the class can spell that word. You're lying to me, Nigel." Test someone," Nigel said, taking an awful chance. "Test anyone you like." The Trunchbull's dangerous, glittering eyes roved around the classroom. "You," she said, pointing at a tiny and rather daft little girl called Prudence, "spelled difficulty." Amazingly, Prudence spelled it correctly and without a moment's hesitation. The Trunchbull was properly taken aback. She snorted. "And I suppose Miss Honey wasted the whole of one lesson teaching you to spell that one single word?" Oh, no, she didn't, piped Nigel. Miss Honey taught it to us in 3 minutes, so we'll never forget it. She teaches us lots of words in 3 minutes. And what exactly is this magic method, Miss Honey? Asked the headmistress. I'll show you, piped up the brave Nigel again, coming to Miss Honey's rescue. Can I put my other foot down and turn around, please, while I show you? You may do neither, snapped the Trunchbull. Stay as you are and show me just the same. All right, said Nigel, wobbling crazily on his one leg. Miss Honey gives us a little song about each word, and we all sing it together, and we learn to spell it in no time. Would you like to hear the song about difficulty? I should be fascinated, the Trunchbull said in a voice dripping with sarcasm. Here it is, Nigel said. Mrs. D, Mrs. I, Mrs. F, F, I, Mrs. C, Mrs. U, Mrs. L, T, Y. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. That's what happened in the movie. That spells difficulty. How perfectly ridiculous, snored the Trunchbull. Why are all these women married? Mrs. D, Mrs. I. Anyways, you're not meant to be teaching poetry when you're teaching spelling. Cut it out in the future, Miss Honey. But it does teach them some of the harder words wonderfully well, Miss Honey murmured. Don't argue with me, Miss Honey, the headmistress thundered. Just do as you're told. I shall now test the class on the multiplication tables to see if Miss Honey has taught you anything at all in that direction. The Trunchbull had returned to her place in front of the class, and her diabolical gaze was moving slowly along the rows of tiny pupils. You, she barked at a small boy called Rupert in the front row. What's 2 times 7? 16, Rupert answered with foolish abandon. No, that's 2 times 8. The Trunchbull started advancing slow and soft-footed upon Rupert in the manner of a tigress stalking a small deer. Rupert suddenly became aware of the danger signals and quickly tried again. It's 18, he cried. 2 times 7 is 18, not 16. No, that's 2 times 9. You ignorant little slug, the Trunchbull bellowed. You witless weed. You empty-headed hamster. You stupid glob of glue. Oh, God. She had now stationed herself directly behind Rupert, and suddenly she extended a hand the size of a tennis racket and grabbed all the hair on Rupert's head in her fist. Rupert had a lot of golden-colored hair. His mother thought it was beautiful to behold, and took a delight in allowing it to grow extra hair long. The Trunchbull had as great a dislike of long hair on boys as she had for plaits and pigtails on girls, and she was about to show it. She took a firm grip on Rupert's long golden tresses with her giant hand, and then, by raising her muscular right arm, she lifted the helpless boy clean out of his chair and held him aloft. Rupert yelled. He twisted and squirmed and kicked the air and went on yelling like a stuck pig, and Miss Trunchbull bellowed, 2 times 7 is 14. 2 times 7 is 14. I'm not letting you go till you say it. From the back of the class, Miss Honey cried out, Miss Trunchbull, please let him down. You're hurting him. All his hair might come out. And well, it might if he doesn't stop wriggling, snorted the Trunchbull. Keep still, you squirming worm. It really was a quite extraordinary sight to see this giant headmistress dangling the small boy high in the air, and the boy spinning and twisting like something on the end of a string and shrieking his head off. Say it, bellowed the Trunchbull. Say 2 times 7 is 14. Hurry up or I'll start jerking you up and down, and then your hair really will come out, and we'll have enough of it to stuff a sofa. Imagine that. Get on with it, boys. Say 2 times 7 is 14, and I'll let you go. 2 times 7 is 14, gasped Rupert, whereupon the Trunchbull, true to her word, opened her hand and quite literally let him go. He was a long way off the ground, and when she released him, he plummeted to earth and hit the floor and bounced like a football. Get up and stop whimpering, the Trunchbull barked. Rupert got up and went back to his desk, massaging his scalp with both hands. The Trunchbull returned to the front of the class. The children sat there, hypnotized. None of them had seen anything quite like this before. It was splendid entertainment. It was better than a pantomime, but with one big difference. In this room there was an enormous human bomb in front of them, which was liable to explode and blow someone to bits any moment. The children's eyes were riveted on the headmistress. "I don't like small people," she was saying. "Small people should never be seen by anybody. They should be kept out of sight in boxes like hairpins and buttons. I cannot for the life of me see why children have taken so long to grow up. I think they do it on purpose." Another extremely brave little boy in the front row spoke up and said, "And he also shares my first name, spelled the same way." "But surely you were a small person once, Miss Trunchbull, weren't you?" "I was never a small person," she snapped. "I've been large all my life, and I don't see why others can't be the same way." "But you must have started out as a baby," the boy said. "Me? A baby?" shouted the Trunchbull. "How dare you suggest such a thing?" "It's true, though." "God, what cheek! What infernal insolence! What's your name, boy, and stand up when you speak to me." The boy stood up. "My name is Eric Ink, Miss Trunchbull," he said. "See? It's the same name." "Eric what?" the Trunchbull bellowed. "Ink," the boy said. "Don't be an ass, boy. There's no such name. Look in the phone book," Eric said. "You'll see my father under Ink." "Very well, then," the Trunchbull said. "You may be Ink, young man, but let me tell you something. You're not indelible. I will very soon rub you out of it if you try getting clever with me. Spell what?" "I don't understand," Eric said. "What do you want me to spell?" "No. Spell what, you idiot? Spell the word what." "W-O-T," Eric said, answering too quickly. There was a nasty silence. "I'll give you one more chance," the Trunchbull said, not moving. "Ah, yes, I know," Eric said. "It's got an H in it." "That's true." "W-H-O-T. It's easy." In 2 large strides, the Trunchbull was behind Eric's desk, and there she stood, a pillar of doom towering over the helpless boy. Eric glanced fearfully back over his shoulder at the monster. "I was right, wasn't I?" he murmured nervously. "You were wrong," the Trunchbull barked. "In fact, you strike me as a sort of poisonous little pockmark that will always be wrong. You sit wrong, you look wrong, you speak wrong. You are wrong all around. I will give you one more chance to be right. Spell what?" Eric hesitated. Then he said very slowly, "It's not W-O-T, and it's not W-H-O-T. "Oh, yes, I know. It must be W-H-O-T-T. Uh-oh. Standing behind Eric, the Trunchbull reached out and took hold of the boy's 2 ears, one with each hand, pinching them between forefinger and thumb. "Ow!" Eric cried. "You're hurt! Ow! You're hurting me!" "I haven't started yet," the Trunchbull said briskly, and now, taking a firm grip on his 2 ears, she lifted him bodily out of his seat and held him aloft. Like Rupert before him, Eric squealed the house down. From the back of the classroom, Miss Honey cried out, "Miss Trunchbull, don't! Please let him go. His ears might come off." "That's physically impossible." "They'll never come off," the Trunchbull shouted back. "See what I mean? I have discovered through long experience, Miss Honey, that the ears of small boys are stuck very firmly to their hands." "Let him go, Miss Trunchbull, please," begged Miss Honey. "You could damage him. You really could. You could wrench them right off." "Ears never come off," the Trunchbull shouted. "They stretch most marvelously, like these are doing now, but I can assure you they can never come off." Eric was squealing louder than ever and pedaling the air with his legs. Matilda had never before seen a boy, or anyone else for that matter, held aloft by his ears alone. Like Miss Honey, she felt sure both ears were going to come off at any moment, with all the weight that was on them. The Trunchbull was shouting, "The word what is spelled W-H-A-T. Now spell it, you little wart." Eric didn't hesitate. He had learned from watching Rupert a few minutes before that the quicker you answered, the quicker you were released. "W-H-A-T, he squealed, spells what?" Still holding him by the ears, the Trunchbull lowered him back into his chair behind his desk. Then she marched back to the front of the class, dusting off her hands one against the other like someone who has been handling something rather grimy. "That's the way to make them learn, Miss Honey," she said. "No, it's not. That's child abuse. You take it from me, it's no good just telling them. You got to hammer it into them. There's nothing like a little twisting and twiddling to encourage them to remember things. It concentrates their minds wonderfully." "You could do them permanent damage, Miss Trunchbull," Miss Honey cried out. "Oh, I have. I'm quite sure I have," the Trunchbull answered, grinning. "Eric's ears will have stretched quite considerably in the last couple of minutes. They'll be much longer now than they were before." "There's nothing wrong with that, Miss Honey. It'll give him an interesting pixie look for the rest of his life." "Huh.